You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for In Between Drafts. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're talking about One Piece Odyssey, which is the latest video game set in the world of One Piece. Now, this is not going to be a formal game review, even though we will be talking about the basic mechanics of the game, I have to imagine, because Travis, you are the assistant games editor for In Between Drafts, are you not?
Yeah, when not doing anime stuff.
Yeah, this is like a perfect marriage of anime and video games for you. I mean, if you hadn't been able to do this, I don't think I just would have done it. I would have been too upset that you would have missed your shot.
No, I definitely wasn't going to miss my shot. Absolutely not. But yeah, we will be, the game section will be running a full review that I hopefully will have ready sooner rather than later.
Cool. Yeah. And this will be more of like I don't want to even say a casual conversation, but kind of a topical conversation, because I want to talk about the game. I want to talk about how it relates to the anime and the manga of One Piece, since I feel like that should be our sweet spot. But it'll be hard not to talk about the mechanics, because that stuff's pretty interesting too. My first question though, Travis, is have you played any One Piece games before? I know you have, but I want to
absolutely. Yeah. Yes. We ran a piece recently on In Between Drafts about some of the good games, and I have a lot of thoughts about One Piece World Seeker in particular.
Yeah, that's 2019. I never played that game. I remember watching the trailer for it and being like, oh, an open world One Piece game, you get to play as Luffy. That sounds awesome. And then I never heard about it again. I didn't even realize that the game had come out. And yeah, legitimately until this game was starting to get some buzz, I was like, is this the open world game? And I was like, wait, no, that would have come out forever ago, because I heard about it in 2018. So yeah.
And that's honestly, that's a lot of anime games, which is kind of what makes Odyssey such an interesting little piece of game here, is that it really does seem like Bandai Namco and Otis team really want this one to pop off, so to speak.
Yeah, they put a lot of work into the marketing campaign. I've been seeing this game everywhere, and I do want to mention too, I've never played any One Piece video games before. I know there have been a whole bunch, but yeah, I've never dove in before. And so this was my first experience doing a One Piece game, which was kind of fun. I don't know if I'll ever get to World Seeker. I don't have a ton of interest, but maybe someday if curiosity gets a hold of me. So I was going to ask you, because before we talk about the game and everything like that, were you a fan of World Seeker? Was it, because I know after doing a little bit of research, it looked like the game got some good reviews, but some really bad reviews. So it's kind of hard for me to tell.
It's a victim of what in the game space is very easily identified as a kind of a baseline open world game where you just, yes, the size of the world is big, but not necessarily everything in it is interesting.
Yeah, it's like an inch deep.
Yeah, the immediate comparison is something like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, of course, or The Witcher 3. But those are very meticulously designed, right down to every single encounter. The level of work that it would take to make something of that caliber with the kind of material that it's working with, it's a lot of investment. And it also has a stealth mechanic, which feels completely antithetical to the concept of Monkey D. Luffy.
Well, yeah, I heard that was kind of weird, but then also you only play as Luffy, except for some DLC apparently, and that to me sounds strange. I mean, it's the Straw Hat Pirates. If you don't play as them, what are you doing? That's One Piece.
And again, it's one of those things where they wanted to make an open world game and then fit One Piece into it. So that's really the answer, is they wanted to build a whole skill set around Luffy. And to that degree, I think they did a decent job, all things considered. The fact that you can gum UFO all over an open world map, just over the water and everything, it's genuinely backbreaking to the canon of the games. And that's always a fun, the canon of the manga, I should say. It's nuts. The thing that I do like about World Seeker, though, is from a story perspective, it has some interesting ideas. I won't get too much into it because we have another game to talk about. But World Seeker, you end up in this place where the Navy controls it, but it's a section of the Navy that, you know, isn't canon, obviously, and you've never heard of it before. But basically, there's a faction of people on this island who do not want to be under Navy control, but most of the people have come around to just being okay with it. And like, this isn't just like the Navy is there; it's more of the Navy is here and exploiting us, but they at least offer us some stability. And you being, you know, Luffy, you can't help but have issues with that. And you kind of have to deal with a populace that is much less interested in your intervention than we normally would see in One Piece. And I thought that was an interesting idea, because, you know, we may see that in the manga someday, but right now it's kind of it's just kind of something that doesn't get explored too much beyond actually seeing, you know, Navy characters, like, you know, that aren't morally questionable. You know, there are good Navy characters, and so that's kind of how we see that. But, you know, most of the time people aren't very favorable of the Marines or of the world government for obvious reasons. And World Seeker offered a little bit of a, hey, what if people, like, you had to convince people to want to be free in the first place, which again plays into why you play as Luffy so much specifically. But it was interesting. It was a good effort.
I get it. Yeah, it's that episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender in the first season. Sure. All right. I'm being reductive and I'm diminishing.
No. I mean, it's not like I'm never going to tell anybody like it's the best thing ever, but, you know, it was interesting.
At least it's not. It doesn't sound like they just played it super safe, like, you know. And so while World Seeker then is open world, it seems to me that it's kind of similar to something like the Arkham Asylum games, maybe. On that note, then this game is very different. So like this game is more like it's turn-based, it's JRPG. The combat, it reminds me a lot of like a Final Fantasy game mixed with a bit of like Dragon Quest. But then I was thinking a lot of Brilliant Pearl and Diamond. And so then I was like, oh, but this is the same studio that did those games. So that makes perfect sense, right? Just kind of, you know.
It makes so much sense because those Diamond and Pearl remakes, many people consider them to be buggy and rushed. And when it came out that Ilka had been working on a One Piece RPG for 5 years, this whole time as their main project, it's like, oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah, I was literally just playing Brilliant Pearl just a couple of weeks ago, and I struggled to get through it. I was like, man, you know, I love the concept of this. I love coming back to this region and everything. Part of it was like, you know, I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent, but, you know, I just done Arceus. I was like, I'm kind of sick of the Sinnoh region. But anyway,
yeah, you have to be a pretty dedicated boomer like me, honestly, to want to go back to it. So, but, you know, I'm glad that it wasn't the only thing Ilko was working on. Like finding out that, like, oh, this is where their resources have been is an interesting idea because, like I said, the kind of work that you would need to put into to really like flesh out an 8 to 9 character cast of functions and actions, it takes time, and they've spent a really long time making this game comparatively to most video game development cycles.
I can definitely see the work put in. You know, on the one hand, like a lot of the game seems kind of simple to me, like a lot of the mechanics and all of that. But and look, I'm going to be honest with you, Travis. You don't know this, but I haven't reviewed a video game since Dragon Ball FighterZ. I reviewed it for the young folks back when that was still existing, and I haven't done a game since. And I just felt like, you know what, you know, an anime tie-in video game that was actually good. Like now I can, you know,
hang up my hat.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, they'll never get me to come back to this. But anyway. I'm a little bit rusty when it comes to evaluating games, even though I play plenty of them, but I don't play as much as many others, right? So, I was going to ask you this. So I think we have both played a different amount of the game itself, of Odyssey, not to be confused with Assassin's Creed, Odyssey,
by the way. I think so, yes.
I think so. And we're not going to, you know, mild spoiler warning, like we're not going to give away things that happen, of course, like in the end, or I don't want to give away any big plot developments that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm.
If you've seen literally like any trailer from the past year for the game, that's it. That's all that I've seen in terms of content. So right now, no spoilers.
Right. So we'll do our best to uphold that for sure. But there might be some mild things, like we're going to talk about like what the game is like. So yeah, you're not going to just hear a super vague conversation. But yeah, so I was going to ask, like, how far into the game are you? If you could, I guess it's hard to say, right? Because you haven't finished it, so you don't know. It's not like you can say like percentage wise, but like, do you know how many hours?
It's been several hours. I spent a decent chunk of the past weekend playing it.
Okay.
And the interesting thing, I don't know if you're also playing it on PlayStation 5. I think you were.
I am, yeah.
But the PS5 does a really interesting thing when you boot it up and you have a game in there, and it tells you how far you are in your current section of the game.
Really?
So I
haven't noticed that. Well, I'm using the digital version. Are you talking about the disc version?
Well, yeah, for me it's for the disc, but it should, if you were to tab over to it and hover over it,
oh yeah,
it will give you.
Too, huh?
Yeah, it's a cool little feature because it kind of gives you a scope of an idea, not necessarily in the context of the full game, but at
usually
least
you
in
have
the
to search
section.
for it, right? You have to
you have to guesstimate
or when
it,
you
or maybe in the menu.
Sometimes it'll tell you like how many hours.
Yeah. No. So I'm in chapter 2 of the game, which again, if you've seen literally any trailer for this game, I am deep in Alabasta flashback territory here.
Yeah, I'm still in chapter 1. So like I am aware of like the flashbacks like that, even though I haven't seen that in the game itself. I'm well aware that that's a whole thing, and which I find very surprising. I certainly, when I heard about that, I was like, wait, what? You're going to do flashback? Oh, that's how they get their powers? Oh, okay.
I wish I could say I was super surprised, but this is not the first time I've seen this happen in a One Piece game.
I just got totally scot-free. Yeah, I was just, I just avoided the game news, and so I got to, be a bit of a puppy on this. But okay, cool. So you're a few hours in. I'm maybe like about an hour, if that. So like I'm still in chapter 1. I'm still kind of getting to the swing of it, and I'm still kind of like figuring out like, what is the story really going to be? Still in like super setup mode, right? The basic premise is that this is essentially like a One Piece movie in video game form. That's how it comes across to me. I don't know if the other games have been like that. It sounds like World Seeker was kind of similar to that, but I definitely feel like I'm playing a One Piece movie. I don't feel like I'm playing the anime, but obviously like elements of the anime and the movies like overlap, right? So the character interactions and things like that are all over this game. Like if you ask me what they spent the most time on, it's probably like, I'm going to tell you like, it's not necessarily like a lot of the like system stuff going on with the combat. I mean, obviously they do a lot of work on that too. But for me, it's like getting the character interactions right, drawing up the characters, getting their mannerisms and doing all of that. Like those are the sorts of things where I'm like, oh, this is like really like heavy on being a One Piece like experience beyond just being in a game. Would you agree with that, or do you think it's like a little bit different from that kind of filler?
So first of all, to your point about it feeling like a movie, they literally drop multiple references to Strong World, like shortly after what you, they're not like big reveals. They're just like character dialogues that are like, oh, Strong World is canon in this version of the story. Okay. That's an
and we should say, I mean,
drop.
Just to be fair, there's plenty of like movie stuff that's become canon. Not a lot, but
Yeah, no, it was interesting because like Shiki is canon, and I had a conversation with somebody about this when I noticed it. I was like, hey, wait a minute, that's a weird thing to say. It's like, and they're like, well, yeah, Shiki's canon, and I'm like, yeah, but not to the Straw Hats. If the Straw Hats are like, oh, this is like that time.
That's right. Wow, yeah, you're right, because they shouldn't be aware of that.
Right. So like, they're like, this is like that time Shiki took us to this island, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So we're gonna have a few little fun little hints and stuff. So that's you're spot on for that. But the thing that's so interesting, or I guess I should say fascinating to me about this being a JRPG is that it solves the main problem of how do you have all the Straw Hats in the game. Like the mechanics and the fact that you have this massive party of main characters. Every Straw Hat could be the lead of their own series. So how do you make that time work? They're all party members in an RPG, and you get most of them from the start. That's a solid solution to that dilemma. And it does.
It's like having the entire Pokemon team already chosen for you.
Yeah, and because the Straw Hats are at their best when they're together, it's immediately fun and engaging because the Straw Hats spend 90% of the opening of the game together in some degree or another. So even One Piece itself as the source material has a hard time keeping them all in the same room for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I kept waiting for that of like, because they split them up very early in the game, like the first part, but then like quickly like they're reunited, whereas like if we were watching the anime, right, it would be like they split up and we're not going to see them together again until like the end, right? That's not what's happening here.
There is literally a segment that like just happened to me, and again, I won't get too much into spoilers, but it literally leads to Luffy and Zoro leaving the party. You get the whole mechanical text box explaining that. The game takes you back to being able to play after those boxes. You can save the game real quick, and then you turn the corner, and another cutscene plays, and Luffy and Zoro rejoin the party. That's how fast they reunite the Straw Hats.
That's funny.
Which is kind of annoying mechanically speaking, because you're like, why did we just do all of this just to let me save the game? But they do not break the Straw Hats up for the most part, which is, I think, really huge, because that's key to especially like a really traditional like JRPG. It's those characters. Your story could be, nonsense, and most of them are, if we're being honest, but your characters are usually the glue, and these characters have spent 25 years getting defined, building relationships with each other, and it's great. It's great to see them interact constantly, because we don't get to have that as much anymore.
No, we barely get them just kind of chilling with each other. And then this game has like downtime, which is like one of my favorite One Piece things that we get very little of. We should say too, so in terms of when the game takes place, we've mentioned Alabasta, so obviously post Alabasta, but it is post time skip. It's in the New World. I think it's in that fuzzy zone of probably post Whole Cake Island, pre-Wano, because Jinbei's not part of the crew yet. So it seems like it's supposed to be in like that zone. I haven't noticed if there are any like moves, for example, that any of the Straw Hats do that would build them before or after Whole Cake, because I can't really think of, like, the only move would, I guess, be Snake Man, but they could easily just hand wave that away.
And again, this is one of those things where it's like trying to, if you were going to try to make the movies canon, it just completely breaks the logic of time.
It always does, yeah. Because where's Momonosuke? Where's
so placing it on the timeline is pretty painful. And there are some other little callbacks and little references and stuff, even early on in the game, that kind of make it hard to pin down.
Yeah.
It doesn't break anything either because of the way that they deploy them.
And it's hard just because, like, at the same time, I cut my teeth on Dragon Ball movies and those not making any sense when we were, growing up on, like, Toonami and all that stuff. So I feel like I can get over it. And One Piece always did the same thing, to be fair.
Yeah. Toei is good at that. Toei is good at really monetizing the lack of continuity.
I almost sent something to you, by the way, on Instagram that was like, how many actual episodes of every anime, if you take out the filler. And one of the, I guess, non-surprising things was like One Piece has the least amount of like filler technically, because it was something like 945 episodes, I think it was, are canon. And that's like, I think, fewer than 100 episodes of like filler content. But to be fair, that's the thing about One Piece, is it moves at a glacial speed. So some people would say like that's cheating, because like there's plenty of filler. It's just, not a bunch of annoying original characters you don't care about and all that.
Let's count the you want to talk about original characters, let's have a Bleach podcast.
They showed the Bleach one. Bleach was a pretty bad offender. I was like, Bleach was only like 200 episodes. Holy, if you take out the filler. Boruto, oh my gosh, yeah, Naruto.
90% of Boruto is filler itself, which is wild.
Genuinely, like, if you go to the website of like, oh, how do I watch canon Boruto? Like, it should just tell you, like, give up. Like, what are you doing? It's not going to make sense.
This is a tangent. This is a bit of a tangent, but it's my hottest anime take. The filler of Boruto is so much more interesting than the adaptation of the manga that they are doing right now. Now, I haven't seen the latest stuff on Boruto. The only place where I can kind of agree with you is I actually do think the first season of Boruto, like when it's before the manga starts. But when they're at the ninja school again and they're actually like interacting with each other and there's no moon people to be seen for most of it, and then it finally culminates in
that stuff's cool, because Mitsuki is awesome and Sarada and Boruto are such a fun
it's
duo.
Like classic Naruto. It's like what the first several arcs of Naruto were like right up to the Chunin exams, and then you get the Chunin exams again and you get that really cool fight.
Yeah, but then Boruto gets into all that stuff, and oh my gosh, this tangent. But like then Boruto gets into this weird stuff where like he's going back in time as Sasuke, and I'm just like, what do you no?
Yeah,
And then
that's
the
at least
prison
a fun
thing.
time. Yeah, that's at least a fun time because I have read the Boruto manga currently, and let me tell you, it's not interesting.
I stopped the Boruto manga
was,
like not long after Kawaki comes into the story because I was just like, this is not interesting, guys. Like.
It reached a point where between Kishimoto's new series flopping and just kind of the general malaise about it, he came back to do Boruto himself and immediately pumped the gas on like just inflicting pain on the audience.
See, that's
so now
what I
it's
want.
A little bit more interesting. Okay. It's a little bit more interesting now, but like
let's I'm putting this on a list of things Travis and I are going to talk about on Rookie Pirate Radio, which is how to watch Boruto. Travis helps John. Boruto.
How to consume
Boruto.
Boruto.
Back to One Piece.
What were we talking about?
I'm sorry.
No, you're totally fine. But yeah, I really like the Straw Hats. You've played a little bit of it. So you've had a few combat matches, but as you do things like use items on each other or do a support move.
I was going to say, I had a little bit of like a bright-eyed moment when like Sanji gives like some food to Nami and it's like, he does it the way Sanji would. And I was like, oh, okay, this is actually like for real.
And like, my favorite so far is doing a healing move with Chopper on Zoro because Zoro straight up tells him, "You saved my life," which is a supremely Zoro thing to say.
I just love seeing, and then like Sanji and Zoro like bickering with each other, and it's like, yeah, I mean, they nailed that stuff, and it really helps too that they have like the actual voice cast in this, and hearing the actual like Straw Hats like talking in their Japanese voiceover like really makes the experience. I know, like, I don't think you can even switch over to an English voiceover, nor should you. Like, you should experience it. I've always found the voice work and the comedy of the anime to work best with the actual Japanese voices. The English, I don't think has ever translated all that well, even though I grew up on the English translation, like a lot of people at the dub. So just my personal opinion.
Yeah, the Funimation dub is better than the 4Kids dub, admittedly, because, you know, the in-house Funimation.
How could it not be? The 4Kids one, one was so bad it's good though.
I mean,
it was bad, memorable.
Yeah, when the bar is so low, but
exactly.
But it really feels like the script was written with with the original cast in mind, even with the localized text. I think it really does shine with those voices. I would agree, especially when other characters come into the picture.
Yes. Other characters who are not written by Eiichiro Oda. The official writer is Hitoshi Nishio. I don't know if they've done any other games before. I just see them credited as the writer. And then Eiichiro Oda gets credit for the artistry. I don't know if that's like the artistry of like the original work, like Alabasta, the characters and all that. But there is another artist, Atsushi Numata, who might be doing some of the other work there. It's probably a combination, a group thing. And obviously Oda is like executive producing this. And,
if I remember correctly, because they talked about this during the presentation when the game was originally revealed, basically they wrote the script treatment, like the outline of the concept, and they sent it to Oda's team.
Right.
And Oda read it and liked it. Not only liked it and gave it the green light, but liked it so much that he actually, kind of like what he does for the movies too, he actually designed the two main like original characters.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like you can kind of tell that Lim and Audio, like they do kind of feel like Oda characters.
Yeah, but he did those. Most
of everything else I've seen, I've been like, this kind of feels like stock stuff. It doesn't really feel like original material, but sure, yeah.
They feel like it feels, and this is kind of fun. I think they feel like Dragon Quest monsters, which means it's just a little bit of aping Toriyama style for like the monsters and the stuff, and that's fun. That's fun. I like that.
Yeah, and the island is Waford. I don't know how to say it, but
yeah, Waford. Yeah,
it's a fun island. A lightning ruined forest island. It's cool. It's like it's very One Piece, and I'm gonna say here are a couple of my criticisms of the game, and I gotta start from a place of honesty and remind everybody listening that, again, I'm not like this amazing video game reviewer who has any right to say anything, but I have reviewed games before, but not a long time. I find it too easy. Like, maybe it's going to get harder. I expect it'll get harder later in the game, but there are just certain elements of this game, and you can't change the difficulty, which is really frustrating. But the fact that you can switch out your characters at will, the fact that you can't, there's no choice involved in terms of like, okay, I'm going to go here. I should bring Chopper, my healer. I should bring Robin. And if I make wrong decisions, I don't get punished, right? I can just switch things out whenever I want when I'm doing the actual like fighting the monsters and everything. It just feels really easy. Like it just, even when you get to the point where the abilities get slated out, I'm just kind of like, okay, I mean, that's fine because everything's been scaled back to 0. Kind of, I don't know what the word, kind of conveniently, all of a sudden everybody I'm fighting is like really weak. Okay. That's my biggest criticism. Have you been experiencing that, or does it get a little bit harder as things progress?
So I'm probably like 5 minutes away from having the first real confrontation of the game, in terms of what I think will be a trouble, because it's Crocodile. But it's I would agree a little bit. I've had exactly one instance in the entire time I've played so far, and I've done a lot of combat. Even just like by chapter 2, you've done a lot of combat. And my characters are like level 26, something like that already, and I've had one character faint once. At all. That's
just...
And you already have items that can revive them. I have had to use the items. I will say this. There are fights that come up later on in the game that require you to actually do things to prevent that from happening. You should have food. You should, keep Chopper alive specifically. Chopper's only so useful even at this point in the game, though, because he can only target individual Straw Hats. So you still need the food. You still want to, line your combats up. You want to use the equipment and stuff. But if you're doing all of that outside of, a colossal screw up, I have not had a character faint. I have not had a character stay at low HP for an extended period of time. I've been able to mitigate status effects almost entirely. It's extremely rare for, like, there's an item that some enemies will use, and it's supposed to paralyze your characters. And I think that this item has been successfully hit on one of my party members twice. Out of at least tens of times more attempts, it just misses. And that's without using evasion tactics. It's not without using items. That's just straight rolls. And maybe I'm lucky, but I get the impression that maybe I'm not. And it's tough to mitigate because, like, the Straw Hats should be tough by now, but, like, I don't know. It feels almost like it was balanced in such a way to not feel grindy because so much of the game is going to be stopping and starting anyway.
And we should say, because we haven't said it explicitly, I guess, but the premise of the game is the Straw Hats are full powered when you first use them. It's like Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Like, you get to play as Darth Vader in the first level. You get to see what a fully realized character is like. But then very quickly they lose their powers because of this mysterious girl who has this ability, who basically takes their powers and puts them into cubes. So the point of the game is you have to they have to go back into their memories. Like, Alabasta is like a memory where, like, it can be kind of different from what really happened, and they're doing this so they can relearn, right, how to, here's how I can do Gear Second again, that kind of thing. So that's like the basic idea of the game. And the thing that I do like about the combat, even though I do find it too easy so far, I do really like they call it like the scramble area battle system. And I think they implement it pretty well. This idea where, and it fits so much, it's so One Piece. It's so anime, actually, for the One Piece story, where the characters are in different places when they're fighting. So, like, Luffy might be fighting, like, the toughest opponent, but then, like, you have Nami over here, and she can do ranged attacks, but she has 2 goons in front of her. And then, like, maybe Zoro and Chopper in another area. And so it takes a turn to, like, go to somebody else's area, and you kind of have to think and strategize. It is kind of like the anime. Like, so much of the anime is like characters kind of like bumping into each other and saving each other and helping each other, and it does have that camaraderie aspect to it, which I think is like I don't know, I think it's a very like smart thing. It's kind of what I always wished like Pokemon team battles were, because the Pokemon team battles they've never been fun. Like I've always found them very dumb, but except for maybe Pokemon Coliseum, I thought it was kind of they kind of had it figured out. But yeah, otherwise what do you think? Did you like the scramble area battles?
So you're right that it adds a little bit of mechanical depth to things, because you do have to, if you have them in the wrong spot, it's a waste of a turn.
Right. And it's like Dungeons and Dragons. You got to do it quick.
You want, it's an RPG. You want to optimize your turns. I think they make it a little too easy to do. But the other aspect of this system that I like is that in addition to placing your characters in certain zones of battle, some of those zones can become events in and of themselves,
right?
Where there's a challenge applied, and sometimes it'll be like, oh, all these characters are targeting Sanji, and then that triggers a dialogue where Zoro and Sanji banter or something, or Nami's being
extra
targeted.
XP, right? If you do the challenge,
if you do the challenge right, sometimes it's straightforward. Sometimes it's maintaining the consistency of the storyline. So like I did a boss fight against Mr. Tu Bon Clay, the goat. And number one, he's actually one of the toughest fights that I've done, because
he's not number one. I'm just kidding.
He's the goat. He's the besto friendo. But
yes, we are Bon Clay fans.
Absolutely, he is one of my absolute favorite characters, just like non-Stry Hat character, 100%.
Same.
But he soaks up all kinds of damage. He is just a tank, and particularly he is resistant to the class of attacker that Luffy and Sanji and Chopper occupy, which is number one half of your party at this point. Just because Robin is like, hey, we're in Alabasta, and I don't think it's probably a good idea for Vivi to see me with you guys. So she leaves to go do Robin things for a bit, which makes sense. That sounds like a Robin thing to do. So most of your party is this class, this fighter class that Mr. Tu can just resist, and then you get, about half, you get through kind of the slog of his minions and stuff, and you're all kind of zoned up against him. And that's when the game throws at you, okay, bonus XP if you can beat him with Sanji. Sanji has to land the last hit. And so it does add a little bit of a layer of challenge. I don't know if difficulty would be the correct word, because it's not that hard to parse what you need to do. But it does
That's cool. It at least makes it a little bit less straightforward.
It gives it some flavor. There's a lot of flavor here. That's what I would say. The substance is, it's a JRPG. If you've played one, you're pretty familiar with it. This is, we're talking like the first several hours of Persona 5 kind of combat right now, which is fine. I adore that genre, so it's fine by me. But yeah, like in terms of it being a challenge, we'll see what happens when we get to the more tense parts of the story. It still really feels like slow going.
Yeah, maybe it picks up, and then I'm hoping for that. I was going to ask you one thing I did very early on. As soon as I had the option, I changed everybody's outfits, because I'm going to be honest, I don't love the New World outfits at all. So I changed everybody to their like pre-time skip clothes.
Oh, the pre-order.
Yeah, I had the pre-order, so I was able to do that. So like I changed, so like Luffy's in his like normal red vest and everything, and I like Nami doesn't look like she needs to put a shirt on, any of that stuff. But at the same time, the cutscenes, even though that works for combat, it switches them in like the cutscenes. So like the part of me that's just sort of like, this isn't consistent. I'm getting annoyed. Like that makes it less fun. But
sort of a tangent about that. I did that too. I put some of the characters back in their old ones, because I like original Chopper with his little pink hat. And I know he's still wearing the hat underneath, but he never, like, the hat's always hidden now, and I just love the hat. So like I switched him around and stuff, and I thought, oh, it'll be fun to switch back to the old ones because we're in Alabasta. And it just kind of made, like, weirdly enough, that made me appreciate the original time skip clothes more. Actually, because there's a non-confirmed belief that certain character designs are done, like changes to a character design are done to make the mangaka's life easier. Like again, I'm gonna crap on Naruto for a minute. You know, like all the Shippuden designs cut a bunch of the unique like additions to the characters' costumes and kind of streamlined them. Or you know, famously the belief that Toriyama invented Super Saiyan so he didn't have to keep inking Goku's hair in every fight scene. You know, that kind of stuff. And and again, mangaka work to death. They work themselves to death. So by all means, take any shortcut you want. But Oda made his character designs more complex. Every single one of them are more complex. Like there's more accessories. There's scarring. There, like even Nami, who is technically wearing less clothes, she now has a stylized belt with buckles and shoes with details and all this stuff. And it's just like, wow, like I don't even think I've ever really fully appreciated before, like actually seeing these, you know, being able to stare at these character models for so long because there's so much talking. Like, wow, he really did kind of like up the ante when it came to the character designs, because that never really stops. You know, he just keeps creating. There are so many good costumes for them as time has gone on, because we've gone to so many different places. And the only thing that sucks is that I'm almost certain that we will never unlock another costume through gameplay, and they're going to sell us, you know, the costumes instead. Like
I want to play Gangster Luffy from Whole Cake Island. Is that so much to ask?
You want Gangster Luffy? It's going to cost you like $3. That's almost a guarantee.
I want Lucy. I want to. That's all. I want. The Master Roshi.
I'm actually hoping, since Dressrosa is one of the places we get to visit in the game, that like that one will at least happen, because I would be sad otherwise.
I can see that. There is an error in the game. I got to bring this up, and I hate to be a nitpicker, but there is an issue. Like they do have like this weird thing where like you do get to play as the Sniper King, but I think they shortcutted it and they made the Sniper King just like a version of Usopp, which like obviously doesn't make any sense, because it's like Usopp and Sniper King are not the same person. I know everybody has that theory that they're the same.
Game development is hard.
Yeah.
It's sometimes you got a shortcut. Sometimes, you know, it's like in Mortal Kombat. Sometimes they just add an extra skin to an existing character, you know, or color shift them. It's like, oh, it's technically a new character. It's that, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
You hate to see it. Also, my other complaint, I'm very sad that there's no Jinbei. I understand why.
I was wondering if we were going to get into that.
I mean, I get why he's not part of the crew yet. It's still pretty recent, relatively speaking. They were working on this game like, you know, 2018, you know, so like that's still like 2 years before he officially joins the crew, even though it's like technically it's like after he's agreed to do it, but he's, you know, because it was during Whole Cake, I want to say.
Whole Cake is when I mean, honestly, he was a member of the crew at, you know, Vivi style in Fishman Island.
Right. Yes.
But
Vivi style is a perfect way to put it.
but Whole Cake is what really like locked it in. He's like, no, I'm going to be a crew member. That's why it was so hype when he actually showed up back up, was like, oh, it's real now. We've actually done it. We've got another Straw Hat after a decade. Like
a decade and change. Because I remember when we were going through like Marineford and the Summit War and like all that stuff, I was like, this feels like the next Straw Hat. When are they going to do that? And then him showing up in Fishman Island, I'm like, okay, yeah, like he's going to be a crew member. And then Luffy's just like, Jinbei, join my crew. I'm like, finally, let's go. And then he's like, can't yet. I mean, I don't even know how to describe
perfect.
it.
The way we went about it is perfect for who Jinbei is, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And I adore Jinbei. I think
Jinbei as well.
I think allowing him to kind of simmer as a character before officially joining has only warmed me to him as I've aged myself. And I just see more of like what makes him so special as the oldest Straw Hat. But
that's probably the elder statesman, you know, dethroning Frankie.
He's the dad now. Frankie can be the cool uncle like he has always been destined to be.
He's
you know
big
what I mean?
Bro. Yeah. He's Anakin.
So,
but for Jinbei, I think it would have been really cool though to see him do his Fishman karate moves in this game. And it's like, I hope this game is successful just for that. Like if they get to do another one where it's like, okay, let's put them in Wano. Let's have a little bit more fun. Let's do Thriller Bark. Why not?
Yeah, it's such a tricky thing because, like, you're right. They've been developing this for so long, and even if Oda had gone to them and said, "Hey, Jinbei's going to join the crew," that doesn't mean anything. He could join the crew 2 years from now in Oda time. It's really hard to parse. Like, I think that's also why, like, Whole Cake Island isn't a place you can go to in this game, because they had no idea how that was going to end when they started writing design documents for this.
Right.
It's one of those things.
It could be DLC though. I'm just putting it out. Like, they could easily.
There is at least one expansion that will be released that they have not said anything on. So it is absolutely possible that we do in fact get like Jinbei or something.
Watch it be like, but it's like Uta or something instead.
That would be so funny. That would be hilarious. I'd love it.
No, it would just be like 50 Rebecca flashbacks over and over again, and you just play them. Play them.
I mean, Dressrosa's in the game, so we'll see how many Rebecca flashbacks
yeah, we get. I was going to ask you. I was like, I wonder if he's gotten to that part of the game yet. I wonder.
Interesting thing about the lore side note is that the game only does a lore drop if it is necessary for Lim to know who someone is. And then Lim uses her powers and she checks the memories of these guys and gets a very quick one sentence, "This is who this person is." And it tells the player, "This is who this person is." And if you want to know the actual story of how this, how this actually played out, etc., you actually unlock like narrations that you have the option to go into and watch, but if you are an expert, you do not need to waste your time getting the story retold to you, which perfect, excellent, thank you very much. I'm all for it. But all of this kind of makes me wonder if we're ever going to get like the true definitive One Piece game until we're completely removed from it. You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
So because again, they only had so much they could work with. These characters are in their time, their first outfits out of the time skip, because that is the most reliable outfit to work with, right? It's there's not going to be a better one later on that's going to, because especially with a video game, you have all that stuff planned out long before anything. Another example of this would be, we both saw One Piece Red. I think we both had mixed emotions about it. But one of the cool things in it is animated Gear 5th.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. It's fun. Oh, we got to see animated Gear 5th. But if you're listening to that scene, it's the Snake Man sound. It's the cranking of Snake Man. And it's like, oh, they didn't know if it was going to be, I guarantee you there's a cut scene of that fight where he does not go into Gear 5th. He goes into either Snake Man or Bounce Man. And it's the same scene. They just have it where it's either Oda actually got to Gear 5th or didn't get to Gear 5th. Like literally those are the scenes, I would imagine, just because of how much time it takes to make big projects like that. And video games are like 10 times as big. Yeah. So it's this tricky situation. Of course you couldn't include Jinbei. We hadn't even gotten to Wano when they started developing this game, much less Act 3 of Wano.
We were about to, I mean,
they literally said like it was Whole Cake still when they reached out with the original like pitch for the game. So at that point they didn't even know where the story was going to go. So, even with getting that access later on, there's only so much you can reasonably do and still put out a game that runs this well.
Yeah, because if they do another game, we're probably going to run into the same situation and be like, where's Yamato?
Gear 5th isn't going to be in there. All of it's kind of sad because there's been a lot of change to One Piece, both as a whole and for our characters in specific. I don't know if Nami's going to have Zeus later on in this game or not. There's no indication. I doubt it. Even though there's references to Germa in the game. So it's technically possible, but it's easier to write a one-off line for Sanji than it is to design an entire separate combat system for Nami. So it's just one of those things.
It changes so much in Wano, Yeah,
there's so much radical change in Wano for just about every character not named Usopp.
Right, because I was wondering, I was like, oh man, I guess this means like Robin, we won't get to have like her demon form. We're not going to have General Frankie, I guess. Yeah.
There's not even going to be the option to do Soba Black. There's not, we don't get to do Advanced Conquerors Hockey.
Is it Soba Black or Soba Mask?
Soba Mask, yeah. Soba Mask, you're right. We're not going to get any of that. We're not going to have
Usopp's good because we didn't really get much with Usopp.
Usopp, like I said, every character not named Usopp.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, did Usopp get to have any progression? People thought he had Conqueror's Haki.
He got a lot in Dressrosa, so I feel like it's fair. It's okay. I can handle Usopp. Usopp got the one good. Usopp got the one good sequence where he told the samurai to get over themselves. And he's like, oh, you guys are just gonna roll over and die. Look, I'm scared absolutely out of my mind, but I'm here fighting, and if I'm doing it, get your act together here. That's perfect Usopp for me, because I don't need him to be powered up. I need him to continue to grow as a person. So that's good, especially since some people controversially think that he actually sucks in Dressrosa. So our conversation last week. No, I was complaining. It's still stuck in my mind. The voice actor ProZD, voice actor and YouTuber, he loved Usopp until Dressrosa, and he said he thought a lot of Usopp's character was a regression in that. So getting him in Wano, he gets his
observation Haki moment.
Yeah, I think he gets over it.
Yeah. Usopp's one of the things I actually think is fine in Dressrosa. But anyway.
But we're not going to get any of that in this game, I don't think. And I could be wrong. By the time my actual written review comes out, I could have changed my tune entirely. But right now, I feel like I'm gonna probably enjoy it because I'm a One Piece nerd and I like RPGs. And honestly, I like Pokemon, and Pokemon's comfort food for me. So I don't need a lot to be impressed, frankly. I don't know. I imagine a game like this, but what if we actually had access to knowing all of One Piece? Just imagine the potential. And I'm like, oh dang, maybe we shouldn't have made this yet.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. They have the skeleton of it, and it would be easier to make another game using the same tech, to be fair. So on that note, though, I was going to bring this up because, I have been thinking about, who's this game for? I think that's the eternal question at the moment. Like, if you're a One Piece fan, it seems like it's memory lane, right? To me, it seems like a no-brainer. If you love One Piece, you're obsessed, like we are. The game seems like a great thing to do. Like, you get the character interactions, you get to play these specific moments from previous arcs and all of that. So to me, that seems like a slam dunk. We're playing. But if you're not a One Piece fan, I don't know. Do you think it feels like the game just doesn't really cater to the One Piece newbies, because it doesn't explain anything. We barely get any sort of Luffy wants to be king of the pirates. We're in the New World. This is what a devil fruit is. We really don't get a lot of that stuff.
It's one of those really tricky questions because, again, the root of this genre, why it works so well, is you spend a lot of time getting to know these characters, and they're very well formed in the states that they're in. So I don't know. I have seen talk online where people who have either not been following One Piece for a long time or are only tangentially aware of it, have shown interest because it does look good. It looks visually great. My only complaint is the characters might be too on model. They feel a little stiff sometimes, but visually it looks great. It runs great. The PS5 version, at least, is exactly the kind of performance I want to see out of a game. And for fans of the genre, even if they're not One Piece fans, that's a lot to entice them to be interested in it. Do they stay interested in it? I'm not sure. I don't know what. I am a One Piece fan, so it's really hard to put my foot down on whether or not it would be something compelling. But again, it's tough because what can you do but pick a piece of the story and readapt it? I guess my biggest hang up is I almost wish they had committed harder to not being too worried about whether or not newbies were going to come play it. Because I would just rather not do the memory thing at all. I would genuinely just prefer them not. Just everything's on Wofford. This is an original piece of material, because I think that would be more inviting to everyone, because everybody's on the same page at that point. Like, sure, you might know what a devil fruit is coming in, but that doesn't necessarily mean like you know what's going to happen in this game. But like for most people, like all of these little flashback sessions, they're fun. We're going to have a good time. We love seeing some of these characters. There are a couple of characters who we we'll love to see. And there's already been a moment in the game, not spoiling anything, where being able to go back into these memories was genuinely cathartic for one of the Straw Hats already. And that's an interesting and fascinating thing to see happen. But that doesn't mean anything to like a new player. It barely means anything to us if we're being honest, because it's not even going to be the only time we have this moment happen. So I would almost rather them have even gone harder on the original content and make it more like a One Piece movie where you could just go see the dang movie and be, and like it or don't like it based on its own merits.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be. I was hoodwinked, bamboozled, and whatnot. Okay, I think that about covers it. I didn't really have anything else I want to bring up about the game itself. I do have two kind of off-topic things, though. Unless you had any last thoughts on the game. For me, I'm enjoying it. Maybe we'll be able to talk about, like, once we both have finished the game. Maybe we can have another conversation in a month or so.
Sure.
Depending on when we finish it, and be like, hey, how did it shake out for you? Or we could just do it as like an off-topic thing and a different conversation. Who knows? But yeah.
The only thing I want to say is stay tuned for the review on In Between Drafts.
Yeah, for sure. Got to check that out once you finish the game, and I'll keep you posted. Travis, in the DMs, I'll let you know if I run into anything weird that I gotta bug you about. But okay, so I had two things I wanted to bring up. First was more of a silly thing. I do have a bone to pick with you about your list of like the anime video game tie-ins, because I was scrolling and I was like, oh man, I haven't seen it yet. That means that Yu-Gi-Oh! Eternal Duelist Soul is going to be number one.
Oh, deepest cut.
And when I got to number one and it wasn't there, I was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be like not an honorable mention, but it's just sort of like a prank, but then the article ends, and I don't know what you like. Did you cut something out? What happened?
So this is we're gonna step behind the curtain and go into how the sausage is made, and it's less of a top X whatever list, and more of these are the ones that we've enjoyed a lot.
So it was a revolt. I get it. Like all the writers in between drafts put it on their list, as number one, and then you were like, no, everybody.
Well, so honestly, we actually discussed the Yu-Gi-Oh games in relative detail. So. And this is where I'm going to get controversial probably, but
you put Legacy of Goku in there, and you didn't put. Game.
So we very specifically went for games that are adaptations of the anime, and so we actually discussed the Yu-Gi-Oh games, not specifically Eternal Duelist Soul,
which is an adaptation because you do Battle City.
You do. We kind of. I'm going to be honest with you. I forgot specifically Eternal Duelist Soul.
How dare you?
Itself, because you know which one I looked up to, like, I was like, did this one actually follow the plot of an arc? It's the Xbox one, the Dawn of Destiny one.
I remember that one,
which does not. And I was like, and I've played Eternal Duelist Soul. I don't have an excuse for this beyond I completely forgot it existed. And there are so many Yu-Gi-Oh games, and I have played more Yu-Gi-Oh games than I want to admit.
The Yu-Gi-Oh GX one is good too. I'd put it up there as well, and then the World Tournament one.
The thing that I'm gonna say to you, John, and you can feel free to cut this out if you need to, but we have a Slack channel for the anime section, and you are in it. And you are in it. So if you wanna throw in your hat for something, you absolutely can.
Travis, I guess that would be a fair point in a world where. To me, it's like obvious. I'm like, oh well, they'll get to it. They'll put it there. Like I don't have to do anything. But yeah, okay. So that was my little gripe, little dumb gripe.
No, you caught me. I forgot that one existed.
It's like I feel like you're gonna have to call me out on like a film list at some point and be like, John, what are you doing? But okay, so the other thing, and for those of you who don't know, I'm the film editor for In Between Drafts. So I was going to bring this up too. Have you been watching the anime, the One Piece anime lately? Last couple weeks?
Yes.
You saw
I poked
the thing?
in. I mean, there's a lot of things.
The Zoro thing?
The Zoro thing is what you're talking about. I'm still like, it feels so cool to have adult Momonosuke animated now, finally.
Well, just as the dragon.
It feels so good. I know, but it feels so good.
While.
I know, it feels so good, though, after, to see it in all of its glory. Anyway. Sorry.
But no, like, okay, so this is something we haven't talked about yet, but Ushimaru, who was the daimyo of Ringo, and like the manga kind of vaguely made him look a little bit sort of like Zoro. The anime is all but like confirmed. Like I feel like the anime has gone way farther than the manga to being like, yes, Zoro is like a descendant of not just Ushimaru, but also Ryuma. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like the manga was more coy about it. And I think that like, I don't know what happened, but apparently like the anime people didn't get the memo, or it was just like, yeah, you can just do that. There was an article about this too recently, but did you have something you want to say?
No, I'm very familiar with this talk because the Zoro stands all have YouTube channels, so it's it's been a hot topic of contention. Especially since we got Sanji like bloodline stuff in Whole Cake, it kind of, and I guess the best way to put this is we know a lot about the lineages of the Straw Hats at this point, every single one of them. Like we know Jinbei's entire history. We know, Frankie was an orphan, but we know he's ties to Gold Roger. Like he's the only Straw Hat who's actually met Gold Roger technically. Outside of Nami, we have a decent look at like the places that our characters have come from. So a lot of people were expecting this to be Zoro's moment. And the only thing that I can say to that is Wano ran for 4 years. And sometimes you have to make a call. And I'm not saying that he cut it completely. What I think is we're probably going to end up back there at some point.
Well, yeah, because it's going to factor into the story. They have,
Yeah, but, I think it's all but locked in that if we go back to any island that we have visited previously, outside of Sabaody, because it's the only one we've ever done, it will probably be Wano, and that will give us plenty of time to resolve this, unless it's resolved in an SBS.
So I have two things. I mean, first of all, before everybody writes into us, yes, we are aware that Oda has said specifically that Ushimaru is not Zoro's dad. Like he said in the SBS, he said like, because people were asking him, he said that like, oh yeah, I took stuff out of the manga specifically to avoid this confusing people. I get it. But two things. First of all, Oda's a little baby liar. He loves lying to us. The other thing is that he could still be related to Ushimaru in some way. It could still be like in the same bloodline and all of that. And I think that's more of like what people are alluding to, that there has to be something going on with Zoro here. My second thing, Travis, and I think that he already went to Ryuma's grave. My little pet theory about this is that I think that it's going to be a flashback. And I know you and I have already talked about this, but I think we are going to get to a point where Zoro's going to have to power up again in some fight. Maybe an Elbaf, maybe, G14, whatever it is. I think that he's going to maybe even up against Mihawk. And in order to get to the next stage of his development, I think two things, like his right eye, what's going on there, but then also flashing back to Ryuma's grave and then revealing some piece of lore that ties into what it will really take for him to become the greatest swordsman. It's going to be something about destiny or whatever nonsense. It's not going to be, you know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at with it. And I don't even love the idea of characters being related to each other. I always love coming back to like characters are just like bootstrapping themselves, and it's not because like, well, my dad was Ushimaru, and like I don't like
right. Yeah, that's the question that I would ultimately ask at this point is, does it matter? Because like, even with everything we learned about Sanji and Whole Cake Island, the ultimate takeaway that we should have had from that was none of it matters. Germa doesn't matter. They don't define Sanji as a person.
Yes.
And then we had to have a whole second like an internal character dilemma with Sanji about whether or not Germa means anything to him, and if that makes him a monster, etc. And the point is that Sanji has chosen to be somebody different. You know, Luffy by the same token, like, yes, he's the son of Dragon, he's the grandson of Garp, yeah, you know, yada yada yada. I don't need him to be the descendant of Joy Boy. I don't need, you know, blood. Right. I don't need blood.
I know that's ties. Why you don't like the Will of D kind of theory that they're like the descendants of the crew and all of that.
Well, you know, I like that in that it's passed down from the crew, like you know. As a,
like inherited will, not necessarily
like an inherited will. Yeah. So again, it's one of those things where like, oh, do you really need Zoro confirmed to be like blood related to anybody in Wano? Even though you know, like, yeah, because he inherited the will of Wano. That dojo that shouldn't exist is where he came from. He's a son of Wano, even if he's not. You know what I mean?
Which is way more compelling, and it's the same thing as like. You know, Luffy inherited Roger's will, not Ace, right?
Right.
And so Oda's already like laying groundwork for that sort of stuff, and I do think that is interesting. But and also, I'm glad you brought up the Sanji thing, because then Zoro being the son of a daimyo and all that is like it's kind of doing this. It's retreading the same thing, even though it is a totally different. Like the whole point of like Sanji was like. Kind of similar to Luffy. It's like trying to be different from his past, even though he's like a prince and all of that. And then, you know, Nami is like one of the true underdogs, right? Like orphaned.
Yeah, well, I literally never need to know who Nami's actual parents were. Her mom was Belmare. That's good enough.
Yes. And if they do, I swear to God. But like, even like somebody like Jinbei, like you know, him, it's not lineage, but he was like kind of like Frankie, like a mentee of like this really great person. And, you know, Usopp is like the son of like a deadbeat, you know, who's that's I guess kind of like a lineage thing, but also not, because Yasopp seems like a true underdog to me too. So
yeah, with Usopp, I think it's more of because it informs his character. His entire bravado comes from that, and it's what draws Luffy to him. Is that Luffy sees past the bravado and he sees the potential that Usopp could be, because he has seen what his father could be, and so like Luffy consistently sees the absolute best in Usopp, and subsequently so does the rest of the crew. So like, and because again, I think when it does come time to deal with the red-haired pirates, that's when we're gonna get some good Usopp stuff, and that's why I'm hoping it's all on Elbaf. But
then we're gonna get to the point where like we find out that Brooke's parents are, you know, from the haunted mansion, and we're like, that's dumb.
Literally Jack and Sally. Yeah, just
yeah. There you go. That would be kind of funny, but I would hate it. But okay, that was our little extra topic. I had to add in there. I apologize, but I guess that'll do it for Rookie Pirate Radio here. Thanks for talking about the game with me and like 20 other things. Again, I am putting the Boruto thing as a topic idea, Travis, because I feel like that could be really interesting.
Sure, I'm down.
We do have a new One Piece chapter coming out on January 22nd. That's just 5 days from today. And we'll be talking about it sometime, I think, next week. So stay tuned for that. I am looking forward to it. I genuinely, Travis, I'm like checking the Viz website every day. Be like, what if it's a bug? What if it's going to be coming instead of Sunday, like today? But
as far as I know, it is definitely coming. So
yeah, I mean, it's. Of course, but yeah, you know me. I just can't. I can't resist hoping. You know, my dream is to read this
get One Piece
manga
early. It's everyone's dream.
Right. Well, until then, we'll see you on the next Rookie Pirate Radio. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.